Welcome, everybody, to Mudflood Was Armageddon. Mudflood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. You never know what you're going to hear in the Mudflood movement, and you probably weren't expecting to hear about Heaven's Gate, the movie. You've heard about the Heaven's Gate cult with believe his name was Applewhite. Very weird situation of mass suicide. This is a situation more along the lines of mass murder. So let's just get into today's education on hidden history, what they lied about, and how it's right out there. And now that we have eyes to see, it is our responsibility to see. So I put the link in there. Anybody that hops in can feel free to use it. Catching up on the news yesterday, something shook New Hampshire. What caused the boom is a mystery. I'm thinking sonic boom right off the bat. Mysterious boom jolted New Hampshire and at least one adjoining state on Sunday morning, rattling home spooking pets and prompting several hundred amateur sleuths to go online to try to find out what possibly could have caused all the commotion. They wondered if it was a meteorite, but anyway, they know there was something going on out there. And I'm telling you right now, there's something going on in the skies. But we're going to get to the Wyoming Stock Growers Association. What is a cattle baron? The Sand Creek Massacre. We're going to get there. The Johnson County War. That's kind of crazy. We're going to find out about these people and, what was a regulator, how it all tied into the movie Heaven's Gate, 1980 American epic Western, famous, critically acclaimed follow-up movie to The Deer Hunter by Michael Cimino, filmed on location. And what I think is the big tie-in here is that he wanted to make it authentic. He had just won an Oscar in his first movie. He wanted this one to be big. So he wanted everything authentic. And as you saw in the thumbnail, one of the big scenes that cost, $100,000, they said, in 1980 or 79, whenever they were filming it, to rebuild. And put that in perspective, a great big roller skating rink in the middle of Wyoming. And so it was built by specifications, probably out of the same catalog that they ordered it out of. It all came in a kit. You put it up, and the next thing you know, it's party time. It's party time. So how did they get them? Well, the same way they got all of the kits. And, here's just a quick scene from the movie. Guys playing a fiddle on roller skates. This young man had just worked them into a frenzy, this young man, by getting out there and roller skating. He's a roller skating fiddle player. But the takeaway is, who are these honkies? Who are those guys? And what are they doing in the middle of Montana? Well, they bought a kit town. Things all over the world were resetting. It was the end of the Industrial Revolution. things were going crazy in Europe. So whole towns were in pooling their money, combining their money, taking loans to start fresh, away from all of the troubles of the nobility. But little did they know they were getting in trouble by coming to the United States, because it was a false dream. And just because they're white doesn't mean they're going to be treated like the royalty and other people. And spoiler alert right now, the end of this movie, all of these people get killed by cattle barons and everything else, because no, you're not going to farm on this. This was a farmer war. They came here to grow crops and things like that, but they said, no, this is cattle land. And I believe, can't say for sure, it's been a long time since I saw the movie, but I believe they dressed like Indians before they decided to kill them all. And it didn't matter. The same thing happened. And to be honest with you, I think I had confused their, butchery and the cattle war with the Sand Creek massacre that I said we'd be getting back to. We're back to it now. What went down on the Sand Creek massacre? A bunch of things happening around September 28th, 1864. They took the pictures with them. They were trying to negotiate a surrender. So they finally got their guns away from them. And Black Kettle, leading chief of around 163, mostly Southern Cheyenne, had led his band, joined by some other Arapahoes under a chief Niwot, to Fort Lyon in compliance with provisions of a peace parley held in Denver in September 1864. After a while, the American Indians were asked to relocate to Big Sandy Creek, less than 40 miles northwest of Fort Lyon, under the threat of their safety. The Dog Soldiers, who had been responsible for many of the attacks and raids on whites, were not part of this encampment. Most tribal warriors stood their ground, refusing to leave their home under the guise of a threat, leaving only about 75 men plus all the women and children in the village. The men who remained were mostly too old or too young to hunt. Black Kettle flew a U.S. flag with a white flag tied beneath it over his lodge, as the Fort Lyon commander had advised him. This was to show he was friendly and to forestall any attack by the Colorado soldiers. Peace Chief Ochinni, who tried to broker peace for the Cheyenne, was among those who were killed. Ochinni and 160 other people, most of whom were children and women, were killed. Meanwhile, Covington and 425 men of the 3rd Colorado Cavalry rode to Fort Lyon, arriving on November 28, 1864. Once at the fort, Covington took command of 250 men of the 1st Colorado Cavalry and maybe as many as 12 men from the 1st Regiment New York Volunteer Infantry, then set out for Black Kettle's encampment. Things were going to go from bad to worse. However, the rest of Shivington's men immediately attacked the village, ignoring the U.S. flag and a white flag that was run up shortly after the attack began. They murdered as many of the Indians as they could. Testimony before Congress. I saw the bodies of those lying there cut all to pieces, worse mutilated than any I had ever saw before. The women cut all to pieces, with knives scalped, their brains knocked out. Children 2 and 3 months old, all ages lying there, from sucking infants up to warriors. By whom were they mutilated? By the United States troops. And the other ones are just as horrific. Read them if you want. The natives, lacking artillery, could not make much resistance. Some of the natives cut horses from the camp's herd and fled up Sand Creek or to a nearby Cheyenne camp on the headwaters of the Smoky Hill River. Others, including trader George Bent, fled upstream and dug holes in the sand beneath the banks of the stream. They were pursued by the troops and fired on, but many survived. Cheyenne warrior Morning Star said that most of the Indian dead were killed by cannon fire, especially those firing from the south bank of the river at the people retreating up the creek. The testimony claimed as many as 500 to 600 warriors were killed. So not only had they finished off their women and children left behind, they went and wouldn't accept the surrender of the men either. But that's not what, the Johnson County wars were all about. They're also known as the War on Powder River and the Wyoming Range War. Was a range conflict that took place in Johnson County, Wyoming from 1889 to 1893. That's as long as the Civil War. That's also as long as World War II. Much longer than the United States involvement in World War I. But it was a conflict. Began when cattle companies started ruthlessly persecuting alleged. Notice the alleged there. You only had to be alleged. I feel like I should prove that. There's a picture down here of Ella Watson. Hi, Ella. That's Ella Watson. No relation to our friend Ella from Australia. She's not even in Australia. She's in Wyoming, man. Well, Ella was lynched in 1889 by wealthy ranchers who accused her of cattle rustling, a charge that was later shown to be false. But they're sorry, I guess. So here's the invaders. Like some people like Jesse James, or not Jesse James, Billy the Kid. He was a regulator. So was Pat Garrett, I think. They kind of were deputized. There's the smiling, cattle rustling accused Ella Watson. Businessman. He was lynched for cattle rustling, although he wasn't even a cattle rancher. Frank Canton. He was hired to lead the band of Texas killers. Private army and mercenaries going on right here. Right here. And this isn't the Sand Creek Massacre. This is where they set up those other honkies. You know what? You can buy these barns in kits. They came in your kit towns, and if you bought a house, you'd get a discount on your barn. We're showing all that. As violence swelled between the large established rancher and the small settlers in the state, it finally culminated in the Powder River County, where the river ranchers hired gunmen to invade the county. The gunmen's initial incursion into the territory aroused the small farmers and ranchers, as well as the state's lawmen, and they formed a posse of 200 men. That sounds like a mercenary group that led to a grueling standoff. Now, that doesn't last 400 or 4 years. That's the siege ended when the United States cavalry, on the orders of President Benjamin Harrison, relieved the two forces, although further fighting persisted in the following months. The events have since become a highly mythologized and symbolic story of the Wild West. And over the years, variations of the storyline have come to include some of the most famous historical figures. In addition to being one of the best known range wars of the American frontier, its themes, especially the theme of today, class warfare, served as a basis for popular movies, films, and television shows. Conflicts over the development of the American West. It is called the Western Civil War of Incorporation. And that's all part of your Mudflood Reset History rewrite, that they don't care if you're white. If you're not with them, you're against them. And if you've never got the tap on the shoulder, asked to join the Freemasons, you're not even in on the first level of it. You've been left to your own devices. You are a wage slave. Wage slave. That's what this show is really about, that nothing, not only is it true in the long term and what we've found out about Antiquitech, Tech, Mercury, free energy, free medicine from vibrations and frequencies, for crying out loud. What more? What are we waiting on? I mean, we already know, so much of the truth, tying in these last I can remember so many. My dad used, because there was only so much music at the beginning of this reset, which probably started in 1958 when they released the new, okay, we're going with this story. They finished rewriting the World War histories in around 1958. It was, allegedly Eisenhower's last 2 years, who was in on the industrial military revolution takeover. And then he tried to warn and act like he's not a part of it. They faked the JFK thing, acting like, yeah, the mobster's son was the president, and now we're all in on this, when it's really all just mafia run. There hasn't been any real governments. I want to say hello to Scotty. Thank you, brother. You can hop on that link if you have anything you want to add to the conversation, Mr. Scotty. And kind of waiting on Tommy. We had a wall of water go through here, but only lasted about 20 minutes. It was quite the storm. So let's get back to see where else this is leading. Basically, your cattle barons, the people who hired the people in the Johnstown County War, was your Wyoming Stock Growers Association, an American cattle organization started in 1872 among cattle ranchers to standardize and organize the cattle industry, but quickly grew into a political force that has been called the de facto, and that means the actual territorial government. They actually ran things of Wyoming's organization to fit right into early statehood and wielded great influence throughout the United States. Because I mean, once you get those two senators in there, you're a part of the big club. That's a war club. The Wyoming Stock Growers Association is still active to this day. It is best known for its rich history and perhaps most famous for its role in the Wyoming's Johnson County War. Early in Wyoming's territorial formation, cattlemen, a lot of them financed from overseas, began to lobby the powerful territorial government and befriended John A. Campbell, the first territorial government of Wyoming, who served from 1869 to 1875. Roundups, rodeos, bronco bulls, that's all a part of, their corporation myth of how they said, this is how you do it, boys. We don't train animals, we break them. All you horse whisperers, go away. We know how to get it done. Show them the back of your hand. So these were your cattle barons. It's an historic term for a local businessman and landowner who possessed great power or influence through the operation of a large ranch with many beef cattle. Cattle barons in the late 1800s were also sometimes referred to as cowmen, stockmen, or just ranchers. In Australia, similar individuals owned large cattle stations. A similar phenomenon occurred in part of Canada, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, Mexico, and everywhere else around the world about the same time. These are all, the Chisholm Trail. He's another famous one. These were your rich one percenters guiding America like they do always. Back to the Johnson County War. It says conflict over land was a common occurrence in the development of the American West, but was particularly prevalent during the late 1800s when large portions of the West were being settled by white Americans for the first time through the Homestead Acts, several laws in the United States by which an applicant could acquire ownership of government land. Well, they took that land from somebody. It is a period that one historian, Richard Maxwell Brown, has called the Western Civil War of Incorporation. And I believe that war is still going on. Did it lead to the regulators? I believe it did. There, I just glanced down and saw the name of Charles Bingham Penrose, very famous rancher down in, it's even south, it's Canyon City. Penrose, Colorado is too small for anybody to know, but there is a Penrose, Colorado. South of Colorado Springs, about 60 miles. I believe they're English. I believe a lot of them were English. Says he was American here, zoologist, gynecologist, zoologist, conservationalist, known for inventing a type of surgical drainage tube. Brain surgery, but somehow he had to go out west because he, after the tuberculosis and got involved in the range wars. Only his friendship. He was one of those alleged cattle rustlers. Where'd you get Colorado, man. He got his Mayo Clinic. There's another setup. Anti did not want to go to Suffragette City. Well, now that's just confusing to me here. Unincorporated town, a post office, and a census designated place. Well, I thought it was a town. Located in and governed by Fremont County, Colorado, part of the Canyon City statistical area. Oh, it was Spencer Penrose. All these guys, all these moguls with the same name, they messed me up. He's an American entrepreneur also. But believe me, there was a lot of those people that were from foreign corporations. Bet on it. The Broadmoor, yeah. Oh boy, that's a big one. You can't golf there; it's too expensive. Heaven's Gate. It's been reassessed. It's not. They had a lot of bad. They didn't want people to know this part of history, but this has always been considered a pretty good movie in other parts of the world. But it's even on the 98th on the list of the 100 greatest movies of all time now that people have stopped saying, oh, it's stupid and they hurt animals. Don't go see it. Don't learn about the United States' real history, the plot. In 1870, two young men, Jim Averill and Billy Irvine, graduated from Harvard. They knew how to get a kit house and stuff. The Reverend Doctor speaks to the graduates on the association of the cultivated mind with the uncultivated and the importance of education. Irvine, brilliant but obviously intoxicated, follows this with his opposing irreverent views. Then they have a celebration. 20 years later, just passing through a boom town in Casper, Wyoming, on his way north to Johnson County, where he's now the marshal. Runs into an old friend. He's an enforcer for the stockman, the cattle baron. And he kills the settler for suspected rustling, probably like Ella. Might have been that, Oh, they're claiming she was a bordello madam. Well, I don't know what those women are doing out there in the middle of Wyoming at those times, all alone without a husband or wearing a head covering, but I don't know. So they're passing through it. But they're still having board meetings. And Frank Cotton tells members, including the drunken Irvine, of plans to kill 125 named settlers as thieves and anarchists. So it's a movie about how the cattle barons set up the farmers, and these are white people. And they got this all planned out. As Averill leaves, he exchanges bitter words with Canton. He knocks him down. That night, Canton recruits men to kill the named settlers. Ella Watson, a Johnson County bordello madam from Quebec, who accepts stolen cattle as payment for use of her prostitutes, is infatuated with both of those men, Averill and Champion. Averill and Watson skate in a crowd, then dance alone in an enormous roller skating rink called Heaven's Gate, which had been built by local entrepreneur John L. Bridges. Avriel receives a copy of the association's death list from a baseball playing U.S. Army captain. So in this movie, they get to roller skate and play baseball, things that those in charge from Harvard really want to push. And later reads the names aloud to the settlers, who are thrown into terrified turmoil. Curley, a station master and friend of Avriel's, sees the plot with Canton's posse, head north and rides off to warn the settlers, but is murdered en route. Later, a group of men come to Watson's bordello and rape her. Avriel shoots and kills all but one of them. Champion, realizing that his landowner bosses seek to eliminate Watson, goes to Canton's camp and shoots the remaining rapist, then refuses to participate in the slaughter. This is based on a true story, Americans' history told to the rest of the world, but not us. That's why we've been left with our heads spinning that what? The earth is flat, the Bible's true, and we're not the good guys? That sucks. Skipping a paragraph. The next day, Avriel reluctantly joins the immigrant settlers with their cobbled together siege machines and explosive charges in an attack against Canton's men and their makeshift fortification. Again, there are heavy casualties. This is the Johnson County War on both sides before the U.S. Army, with Canton in the lead, arrives to stop the fighting and save the remaining besieged mercenaries. Later at Watson's cabin, Bridges, Watson, and Avriel prepare to leave for good, but they are ambushed by Canton and two others. Avriel and Bridges shoot and kill Canton and one of his men before both Bridges and Watson are killed. The grief-stricken Avriel holds Watson's body in his arms. About a decade later, a well-dressed, beardless, but older-looking Avriel walks the deck of his yacht off Newport, Rhode Island. He goes below where an attractive middle-aged woman is sleeping in a luxurious boudoir. So at least one of them made it. At least one of them made it. And that basically is your review of Heaven's Gate. It talks, when you look at the world through new eyes and you see it, you can see they had an enormous roller skating rink because you could buy it out of a kit, have it shipped to you by rail, and they'll put it up. And if you saw, go look at some of the scenes, they taught them how to, all of the clothes and everything else. It's an exact replica. That was their world, and they could have settled there and farmed. But there were corporations that said no. And that's what's going on today. So, I'll put a link in there. Joel, I see you're up and around. I don't know how much of that you've got to see, but I think it's very interesting. And I might as well finish off, some other things I've been thinking about. So if anybody wants to come on, you can. We'll go back to the pictures. Let me make sure I hit the right screen. I did. So there was the roller skating, Oh my goodness, that's not very helpful. So we'll look at this picture. You guys all recognize that. You're probably, not familiar with this, but most of you will probably have surmised this is from a fraternity. You're right. It's from a fraternity that George Hallis belongs to. George Hallis, Papa Bear, Mr. Everything, was an American professional football player, coach, and team owner. He was the founder and owner of the National Football League's Chicago Bears and served as his own head coach on 4 occasions. He was also lesser known as a Major League Baseball player for the New York Yankees. Born in Chicago he was born in Chicago, Illinois, from a Czechoslovakian Bohemian immigrants. Bohemia looks pretty nice. His father was a tailor, grocery store, migrants from Pilsen. Nice, just your average thing. Played baseball and became a member of the Tau Kappa Epsilon fraternity. He helped them win a Big Ten conference title. And I'm always suspicious of somewhere in this article, it talks about he was scheduled to be on the Eastland, the SS Eastland, and we're going to go over that. And I think it was like 890 people killed, the largest, shipwreck ever, maybe, at least in the United States during peacetime or something like that. And he didn't go that day. And those always, remind me of the people like, some of the famous people who I was scheduled to be on a flight that day, but I didn't go when it hit the towers in New York City. Well, now here I found it with George Hallis. Oh my goodness. We'll either stumble it across it or you'll take my words that I would never lie about something like that. So he had, he joins this, which means he's, remember the picture, right? Skull and crossbones. Founded the National Football League. Did you know that who would believe it if I told you that the National Football League, when it was founded as a not-for-profit organization? And it wasn't until about 10, 15 years ago that they finally had to admit, yeah, we're making a profit. Okay. Hey, this has always been by the mafia so that they can have reasons to bet, get their people in position so that they can fix the games, do things like that. Oh, he actually worked for Western Electric at one time, too. I wonder if that's going to come in play. Yeah, because that's where it was. He was planning on being on the SS Eastland. He was running late, however, because he was attempting to gain weight to play football. So he must have been said, no, I stayed to eat an extra biscuit and I missed the 844 passengers, which all came from the company that was hosting and outing the Western Electric Company, a reward for doing a good job. The Western Electric Company. Are they tied in, or am I just making this up? Maybe I'm having a false memory. The SS Eastland was a passenger ship based in Chicago and used for tours. On the 24th of July, 1915, the ship rolled over onto its side while tied to a dock in the Chicago River. A total of 844 passengers and crew were killed in what was the largest loss of life from a single shipwreck on the Great Lakes. After the disaster, it was sold and scrapped. There even was a mutiny. So this was they're setting up that it wasn't a safe boat, but it was still had worked for quite a while and had, this was a big deal. People signed up to go on it. They couldn't wait to get on it. And, the companies rented it out for their, they've had good, and that's what happened for the Eastland. Lakes passenger steamers were chartered to take employees from Western Electric's company's Hawthorne Works in Cicero, Illinois. Cicero was just where the mob was moving out of Chicago to set up their hometowns in Cicero. Maybe I can prove that fast. Do they have a history in the mob? Well, this was set up by the mob. And that's why it's still famous as a mob town today. Scotty will back me up on that in the chat room. There he is. Hey, Scotty, can you back me up on that, man?
Hey, I've been spending like 10 minutes and behind trying to get signed on. I have such problems trying to sign on.
Well, good, man. I'm glad you stuck with it, brother.
Yeah, it wouldn't let me put my camera in. It just blocks me from all. It's just craziness when I try to get on StreamYard. That I'm still trying to sign in on StreamYard on my laptop. I got Wi-Fi and everything. It just won't let me do it for some reason.
On your phone? This is your phone? Because you sound like I always hope to set my microphone sounds.
Yeah, I have a phone now. I mean, I'm on my phone and I have a headset on, but I couldn't even get the camera to work. So I just wanted to call in and say, hey.
Hey, man, I'm glad you did. What'd you think of that Heaven's Gate stuff? I think that's a pretty good case for kit towns, kit houses. It's still the 1%, the corporations,
They had to have a way to offload the stuff from the trains. They had to have special ways to offload them right there and then build the kit towns, have a special way to move those pieces to the alternating heights that they had. I'm saying they possibly had drones or something to move those pieces. I mean, how did they do it? I mean, okay, maybe they had giants, maybe they had the infrastructure we had to a degree, but I'm saying during those golden age, did they have an incredible way to offload that stuff from the train and just be so sufficiently efficient that they didn't need these crews of 1,000 people to do what we would think they would need. I'm just saying this was amazing stuff, and the more I look into it, the more amazing. It seems like the trains were integral in delivering the parts, and they had some kind of mechanized way to move the stuff around where they didn't need hundreds of people, or we'd have that recorded. No, we have people in horse and buggies building this stuff, but we know that's a cover-up. So it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Check this out. It's a steam donkey.
Mm.
This is only 12 by 4.
Wow.
And you know what you can do with a steam donkey?
Probably a lot. Man. Probably a lot if you hook the right mechanism up to it.
And this is a small one, 12 by 14, is a steam-powered winch, once widely used in logging, mining, maritime, and other industrial applications. Steam-powered donkeys were commonly found on large. So a lot of times when it says, in
Well,
the
sure.
historical documents. Did you bring the donkey? Yeah, I got the donkey. Well,
And
they're
what would
looking
you burn?
for
You would burn wood and look at around, look at in the background. What do you see?
you know what
Trees.
these were built to burn? Straw, grass,
No way.
anything like that. Yep.
Wow. So you
And
could basically burn
coal
any
and
kind of
wood.
combustible. If you shredded it up, you could burn any combustible thing in there.
And
Wow.
these things work, and they are found still remnants of them left
Never
everywhere.
heard of a steam donkey till today. That's crazy.
That's
Where
the
do you
thing.
come up with
I
this
have
stuff?
4,000 shows, and I've got all that stuff filed away in the file cabinets of my mind. But you
Nice.
could probably carry about 40 of these on a train, one train load.
Sure. Sure. It would be nothing for a train to haul that stuff around. That's what I'm saying. The trains were integral, and that's why you see train tracks everywhere, even out in the middle of the woods that are cut off, and there's like locomotives sitting dying in the middle of the woods that don't lead anywhere. Well, why? Because at some time that was a way for them to do these incredible cities that we see and out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was like the golden age was real. And it tells us if we trace our history, and we could simply trace the canals and the train tracks. And I feel that that's like,
Hey, you know what? If you trace the canals and the railroad tracks, you're going to find out. You're going to be like Michelle Gibson and go like, "Oh wow, I discovered the tetrahedron."
yeah,
No, you didn't. Everybody's discovered that. As soon as you say they're all lined up in weird things.
you just discovered that somebody discovered it. You're
You
just
know,
bringing it.
and think of the steam donkeys. We just saw the pictures of it, and a railroad steam engine, when it's not pulling the train, can still supply how much power? It's
Mm,
basically a steam donkey 20 mule team.
right, right.
Railroad
Espe-
trains.
especially when you see those railroads that go up the hills in all those hilly countries, and you see those ones that, and they're still in use today, and you have to know the way they're built and just the amazing technology that railroads are, that we could put them all over the world and bring goods and just expand out to these far regions and places and build these kind of crazy kit towns. I mean, it kind of explains that it can't be done by, by two guys and a horse and buggy. You know what I'm saying? It had to have technology involved, and that's the exciting thing, that we're rediscovering the way that they did these things by
The
the
trains built the track themselves. They had the steam power
right,
to have all of the mechanisms. I used
right,
to have an old video that showed them, with rail cars, and then they had railroad tie cars, and then they had the people lined up, and then they had just on the side of the train, 1 foot just long enough for the wood, but it would also carry the rails, and then they just, if they needed a rail, they put it on the side, and the steam engine had a big conveyor belt just rolling, and it rolled
right,
the rail up there, and it was hooked to a cable, and they brought it up, put it in front of the next one, nailed it down, needed more logs, rolled those up, had men to space them correctly, and then boom, just nail them down. The train would drive forward, put in another one.
it
The train
doesn't take a
built
huge
itself. all,
crew.
all
It
of this
doesn't.
stuff about we need
Right.
40,000 Chinamen to pound nails
No.
is nonsense.
No, they had better technology than what we're shown. So if we're shown this kind of technology that they had, and we're teased with the stuff that they had, because you know, it, I mean, what they do, behind our backs, we know that there is great technology that is hidden, and it's been doled out. But it is God's plan. And let's not forget that it is God's plan, and God is the original creator of all this crazy technology. That's what we really have to focus in on. Before anybody made this stuff up, God had the plans written out in heaven. Before, wherever God is originally, before there was a real world, this stuff was already mapped out and drawn out. So we can give the credit right to the creator directly. This is amazing. I mean, it's just, as you dig in, you just see that this
Look at that
technology just,
dude. Look at that dude, Scotty. If that ain't frickin' Indiana Jones, who is?
I mean, I like it. I wish I was like in the picture with them, because that might have been fun, whatever they were doing. Look at that thing.
They thought they were changing the world, man.
But look at the trees in the background. I mean, all you have is just wood. You have wood, and what do you have? We
They got
use
to
the
cut it
wood
down. They got to cut it
after the
down.
reset, and it's after the wheats and tares were split, after everything and were reset. Then we went 100% wood in a world that was built in these crazy bricks and everything, but we went 100% wood and worked our way to the technology that we are today by reversing everything, by integrating. We, like you were saying, we were born into this world in a way that was blinded, but look at how we people are adaptive. You got to give them credit. They are weaselly. They will they will find a way to make money on it somehow and turn it into a way they can control you. Whether it's people or demons or the devil himself. But I'm just saying, you got to give some credit to where it's due. They orchestrated this in an echo of the the mark of the beast, and this is what's the
Right.
glorious thing. They can't do the mark of the beast. They're trying so hard, but God won't let them do that again. And that's the lovely thing. The more they try, the more we're revealed that this is, it's just, we're in a
Now,
time of,
how do we put it into? Because to me, it's becoming more clear every day. They really don't know what they're doing.
they don't. They're throwing things up because, I mean, they have these scientists behind our backs creating, but these scientists don't get along. Can we agree? These people are so competitive. They don't, they have the internet. They don't reach out there. A lot of them are hoarding secrets, but in the same token, it's a universal world right now. It's not, we don't really have countries. They've demolished our individualities as countries. They've taken all that away, and they've left us with
Do
what
you
we
see what
have.
I hope they
Look at
understand
that thing.
what we're telling them is this runs on straw.
Who built those wheels? Who casted those wheels? Who casted the belly? Do you know how
Look
hard
at
it is
that.
to
And
do?
it's a winch.
This
It
is
pulls.
perfect perfection. I mean, we don't make these kind of things.
It
This is
runs
like
on mowed grass.
it's crazy. They stole, like Tommy was saying the other day, they bring out, they somehow they can't, it's some kind of craziness where they can't hide the technology, so they celebrate it as something in the past, and then they give us crap. And they've slowly given us, they've taken, but they celebrate this as our history somehow. But then when you look into it, there's always some kind of diabolical lie in it. But then you can always sort it out when you just look at it. Separate yourself from your emotions, step back and look at it. Like you were saying, they delineated us from, and they've taken us to a different place. It was all timed out. It's not a mistake. And
No.
the loveliness is that you might be in pain, you might experience suffering, you might have uncomfort in this world, but if you are a follower of Jesus, hold tight to the fact that there is a creator. There is a
Speaking of being
creator.
in pain and uncomfortable, when I was talking to Tommy this morning, he had heard a good one that he shared with me, that for people to deny what's going on in the world today, it's like saying that a guy comes up and hits you in the face,
Hmm.
and then the other guy denies it, and he brings in a boxer that says, I'm a 5 times world champion, I've been in 40 fights, you haven't been hit. Well, you're still bleeding. Who are you going to believe, the experts or your bleeding face?
Exactly.
Because they will sit there and tell you, just like they told what was it, the flight 007, the one that got shot down over Rockland, New York, and 600 people said they saw a missile come up and hit it. And then they said, well, you can't trust eyewitnesses. They always disagree.
Right.
And then, so they found 20 or 30 other people that said, no, it just exploded.
Just like the time when they had that big thing at O'Hare Airport and they saw the alien craft that went above O'Hare Airport, and 75 witnesses all recorded it and all gave testimony, and that was just nothing. I'm saying there is high technology in this world, and
there's something going on, because at the same time I shared with Tommy, and I'll share it again right now, that I don't know where the notebook is, but it's one of those things that I know that people are going to think I'm crazy, but I think it was sometime in November, because as soon as it happened, I went in and wrote it down, just like that, getting punched in the face, and said, don't ever deny that this is what you saw. I saw 2 planes, the military planes, like the kind Tom Cruise flies in Maverick, the Top Gun. And they were doing dogfights and shooting at something that was cloaked. And you could actually follow the shots from the plane to hit and stop. And I counted about 8.
Was there a vortex? Was there
coming back, and then they all took off?
Was there a vortex in the sky or a distortion where the ship was?
Nothing.
Where they were shooting at? Because sometimes there's a quiverness or a distortion.
I was
that's weird.
With my phone, trying to get it to record. I played the video, and I only could get the sound of them when they were leaving, because I went out and I said, oh my goodness, look at this. And when I turned it, you know how sometimes then the camera turned off.
What could that be? Went back, what would they be fighting? I mean, in our world.
Again, and I could still hear the sound. And I'm never going to deny that that's what I saw.
The question is, in our world, in the new world that we live in the Enlightenment, what was that? What are they fighting? What the heck is that?
With my own eyes was a dogfight over Markesan, Wisconsin, and I wrote down the date. It's on the back of one of my notebooks.
What the heck were they fighting?
Easy to find. And the date's there, the time is there, my exact description is there, because that's what I saw.
Was it humans in a cloaked ship? Was it demons? Was it angelic?
All I saw was the 2 people, because Randy heard it.
That's weird.
These were happening every now and then. We heard the ships 3 or 4 times. There is a Wisconsin Air Reserve base right near where we were.
Sure.
And, they were scrambling. There's something going on. Now it's demonic. It's other governments. It's the mafias of other countries. It's not communists versus, capitalists or fascists or Buddhists. It's the mobs doing their inner workings.
Right.
And they're still bound to their own codes and things like that too. But
that's what I was trying to say.
No way that Trump isn't Joe Biden.
Right. That's what I was trying to say about the mafia, like the whole mafia thing when they released all the mafia, like Godfather and all that. From then on, then they did Sopranos. In the end, that was their glorified way of saying they took over the mafia, the government. That basically the mafia was the government, but now they're no longer going to use these front men. They're actually, the government is like, and had to be back to the devil being loosed. I mean, it can't be. Because when you trick the nations, what do? I mean, it can't be explained. It has to be supernatural.
Last night's show about the mafia and Lucky Luciano and how the United States government, as soon as it happened, because there were a lot of like Nazi sympathizers, as famous as the Charles Lindbergh, that were openly supporting the Nazis.
Yeah, very strange.
Like, we're the bad guys in this, and and they sunk the Normandy in the harbor of New York and basically said, we still control the docks and the people, and we don't care about you. And so they
It's
had to go let Lucky Luciano out of prison. And
it's
once you make a deal
basically
with the mafia, how's that work? You're from Chicago. You know a lot
it's
about the mafia.
basically what I see is it's the mafia takeover was that there was buried goods all over this land. People were digging them up and becoming billionaires because they were digging up gold, silver, incredible things that were from the golden age that were right here underneath the surface. And that's why when you constantly say there were bathhouses dig up, well, yeah, there were bathhouses, there were gold, silver, there was whatever. There were all because
Plunder that
in
stuff.
the golden age was the golden age. It was the golden age. It was an age of this incredible, and when and then it got to a point where it was they're fighting amongst themselves. We can see they're kind of arguing and positioning amongst themselves, and God is not allowing them to be so healthy. And that's why this whole thing came out. And that's why either the flu and everything, the cold, whatever, it's all been engineered from them after whatever the mud flood was. You know what I'm
This
saying?
is
And
all a part of the same plan
it's a plan
from the time that when Satan is loosed, and from the time of this country when they had the guy Lindell splitting the peas, and then now we know about race baiting, and then oh wow, now we got Darwin, and then now we got the Theosophical Society.
Yeah.
And, oh, Jesus is in us. He didn't really walk the earth and die for our sins. We're Jesus,
Right. You have to kind of divorce yourself from your feelings and look at it as a whole. Look at it as a historical, not from the way they paint it out, but the way that you actually can see it when you look at history. And it is this amazing. You see, I couldn't get the avatar. I spent 10 minutes trying to get my avatar. I spent 10 minutes trying to get my camera, and you could see it's just a blank. It just somehow gave me this blank avatar, so I'm sorry. It should be the ugly face that I normally have, which is
that's a picture you took yourself. I have that.
This is a picture. That little ugly face is on a building next to the Jesus People building in Chicago. That's a real thing I focused in on. That's not some fake. That's a real thing that was put into a new building that was from an old one. I'm saying a lot of these demon faces, that the reason I have this as my avatar is because a lot of these things they look so realistic. I'm wondering what they did. What are these faces we see on these buildings? Everybody's talking about it. I'm just saying, go look at them. I've seen so many that are so realistic. They're kind of scary. And this one itself looks to the left and the right. I've captured pictures of this thing with different facial expressions. I don't know. Maybe it's my camera. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, but if you focus in on these weird, they put these in on a building for some reason. And I'm just saying,
right, they're everywhere.
What are they? What are they? Did they capture the spirit of somebody in them? Or I don't know. It's just a bizarre. I don't want to
put your pictures at, Scotty.
What's that?
Where did I put it? What file did I put your pictures in? I want to show some of them.
Oh my gosh. I sent you so many pictures. I'm not sure if you have them on file. There were tons of them, but
here's one.
I have no idea.
You guys, we'll look for them the slow way. Go. So we got the mob, man. We got.
It seemed it. I mean, I knew real mafia guys. I knew the Spilatro brothers, which are in the movie Casino. If you look in the movie Casino, there are two guys that got buried in sand in the movie Casino. Those were my mom's best friends. And I got pictures of me arm in arm with those guys. Are real guys. And I was really raised in Chicago. There is a real mafia here. It's went underground now. They kind of went underground, but they're still around. But back then it was more like they were, because I grew up with Lenny LaPaglia, was one of the mafia boy boxers. He went welterweight. He went lightweight, welterweight. He was a boxer. There was a whole crew from Stone Park, and that's why when you went in Stone Park, that's why they had the bars there, and and all the wrestling guys like Hulk Hogan and all those wrestling guys, Solomon Bundy and the all of them, Macho Camacho, and all those guys hung out in the little strip in Melrose Park there because it was 100% mafia. It's Stone Park, Melrose Park. Melrose Park is the most mafia controlled place in Chicago. I'm not afraid to say it. I grew up in Melrose Park. It's all, but that has gone away. You don't see it now because government is taking it all over. And I'm saying
when did Cicero stop being the mafia central? And
it never did. It never did. It never did. It never stopped. Cicero never stopped being mafia. It's still mafia today. You can't get into Cicero. You can't do anything in there. It's somehow they avoided all the transformation of the when you look at the Grey Lord trials, that's when, I'll be honest, my aunt was the head chief secretary to the firemen. We used to get all our tickets taken care of when I was 18 back in the 70s. When the Grey Lord trials went down, that's when the government took over the mafia in Chicago. That was like in the late 70s or 80s, I'm not sure. Grey Lord trials, you can look them up, and they arrested and they went and they took over. That's when we lost all our privileges with the mafia that my ma had connections. I'm not afraid to say all that because it's true, and they can't. Maybe they could tie me back to it, but I didn't do anything illegal. But I'm just saying, it's real. It was a real thing, but now you don't see it because
that's the thing. Is that a lot of people. It's like, why don't you want to get caught if it's only a little traffic ticket, or you're not using your this and that and stuff like that. Well, I got tax troubles, man. I mean,
wait a minute. The difference now is everybody's got a cell phone that has a camera in it, and crimes have to go underground now because, this new technology, if you're out in the public doing crime, so there's not as many crimes in Chicago that are outright on the street. They've gone kind of underground and it's gone digital. So you see crime in a different way now. It's not it's safer on the street in a certain degree, but it's tricky. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's like everybody's got a cell phone. So everything kind of changed when people got cell phones. The crimes went underground. And that's what they intended because, that was the takeover, was the final thing, was everybody having a cell phone. Why would the government give everybody with a cell phone and a camera? They did that, not the, what do you think that was?
Track them.
Right. What do you think that was, a good token from the government to have these things? Hell no. You know what I mean? They mess with me every time I try to. That's why I have this. That's why every time I try to do something online, they mess with me. It's like a supernatural thing. They targeted me, and no matter what I do, I can never just get on. I can't just get on and sign on to Amazon. I can't get on and sign on to anything. It's a 3, 4, 5 day long process of trying to prove that I'm me. Who the hell else is me? I'm like, it's me. I have all the passwords. I have everything, but they just lock me out. It's a constant. I'm just saying, it's a supernatural. Maybe God wants certain people not to have. I mean, he's keeping me separated for some. I'm just saying.
Well, that's the thing, is that everybody lives their own life, but you're basically, we're all torn. I mean, we could, basically we should be spending every waking moment in fasting and prayer and repentance for our sins and the sins of our nations, and that should be our full-time job. But life gets in the way.
But who's having any fun anymore? Who's really having any fun? Who's smiling and laughing? Who's enjoying the world? Who's seeing things with a bright new outcome? I mean, everybody I look at is grinding away, trying to make a dollar. They don't have 5 minutes to say hello to you. If you try to say hello to them, they're just, listen, I'm busy. I got things to do. You know what I'm saying? It's a weird, it's like, if you're a real person and you want to reach out and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And just be, it's like you're tested in this time because everybody's busy, everybody's grinding away, and that's the issue today, is that to return to a place that where we could talk. It's the age of communication, but nobody can text
because
each
the
other.
things that we want to communicate to them are really so far above the mental capacity of the death experience of at some levels they would just explode.
Right.
Well, I see I'm cutting in and out a little bit, but unless you're ready for the whole, I think everything I've been told is a lie, you're not ready for it. And I guess it has to start with God bringing them in slowly, but something's going on. Let's go back and look again at that. We'll start to wrap this up by looking at reminding people. We saw that even George Hallis, who had just temporarily working for these guys at Western Electric, for all
The
we
Bears.
know, he could have set up the whole ship, going to on the Eastland, where it killed 844 people.
Oh, that was in Chicago.
That was in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it was an entire company that worked for Western Electric. Now, here, let's context. Somebody's going to have to, whatever that whole factory did, somebody else got that job.
Oh,
And
never
it's
thought
coming
of that.
from Mob Heart Central of Cicero.
Ooh, I never thought of that, Alan.
George Hallis's
And it was public too.
And George Hallis's fraternity that he joined. Remember that picture?
Yeah.
That's his fraternity. That's like
I studied that.
It's
I went on a tour and studied that shipwreck. I was on a tour that studied that. We went.
Right. Did they bring up that who replaced the entire Western Electric company? Who got the bids to do what they were going to after that? Did they get paid for it? If so, how much?
I never thought of it, though. I never thought of it at the time. I just thought of it like everybody else. I didn't really place it. But now that you're saying it, and that I think about it, they showed us it was a temporary morgue in one of those Mudflood buildings downtown that has a 6-foot wide base or 10-foot wide base at the bottom, and they were doing like it was a bar at the time, but at the time they put all the people in there. It was a temporary morgue, supposedly. That's interesting. Wow.
Now listen, read now. With conspiracy on your mind, as it is on mine, because I think this is how you sink a boat while it's at the dock. On the morning of the 24th of July, passengers began boarding the hapless workers for Western Electric who would never return to work, but George Hallis wasn't there. They began boarding on the south bank of the Chicago River between Clark and LaSalle streets between 6:30 and 7 in the morning. The ship had reached her capacity of 2,572 passengers. The ship was packed with many passengers standing on the open upper decks and began to list slightly to the port side away from the wharf. The crew attempted to stabilize the ship by admitting water into her ballast tanks, but to little avail. Sometime during the next 15 minutes, a number of passengers rushed to the port side, and at 7:28 a.m., Eastland lurched sharply to the port. and then rolled completely onto her port side, coming to rest on the river bottom, which was only 20 feet below the surface. Barely half the vessel had submerged. Many other passengers had already moved below decks this relatively cool and damp morning to warm themselves before the departure. Consequently, hundreds of people were trapped inside by the water and the sudden rollover.
Yeah.
Some were crushed by the furniture, pianos, and whatnot.
Yikes.
So I think it was a hit.
It sounds like it could not happen that way. They attacked that ship somehow. It wasn't it there. I don't know. That just sounds like a total crazy story to me. But when you look into it, that ship would not list that ship was a pretty fat, heavy ship. So if you had that many people run to one side or the other, a captain would never let that happen. First of all,
what do they think it is? Like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or those, the movies with
that many people could not sink a ship.
Yeah, you're not going to even move a wooden boat by running 5 or 6 people across the deck.
That's the craziest thing I ever heard. That was attacked, that ship.
A battleship.
That was attacked somehow, or whatever they did to it. Maybe it was a free energy ship, and it was one of the last ones on the river, and they were holding on to it, and they had to sink it somehow and blame it on the fucking people. And then you sink the ship, and then nobody gives a shit about the ship. Everybody says, "Oh, it's the freaking people," and everybody concentrates all the people running this way and that way on the. Nobody cares about I'm saying, what were these ships? Why did they sink them all? Why don't we have them in our record? Of course, some kind of free energy ship, maybe. That's all I could ever figure. I can't take it any other way. It was something secret that they had to hide. When they burn cities down that don't burn, when they destroy things that can't be destroyed, we know that's because they had to cover it up. It was too ridiculous to leave out in the open, like the trams, like all the trams that are gone. Why are all the trams? You can go to San Francisco and still see them, but where they were all over. Why are they gone? They would be beautiful. No.
All right, let's get a little background on the Johnstown flood.
Mm-hmm.
This occurred in 1889.
Ooh.
Catastrophic failure of the South Fork Dam. We'll pull that up to look at it in a second. Located, upstream of Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
The dam ruptured after several days of extremely heavy rainfall, releasing 14.5 million cubic meters of water. That means it's a lot. Killed 2,209 people.
Wow. Really?
And Clara
That's
Barton
crazy.
was there. Major relief effort.
That's a lot of people. Could you imagine 2,000 dead bodies? That's a lot of people.
Can you imagine replacing those workers?
No.
What was the South Fork Dam?
What the hell?
It was an earthwork dam and forming a lake, an artificial body of water near South Fork, Pennsylvania. The dam failed catastrophically, and 20 million tons of water burst through and raced 14 miles, killing those.
What year was that? What year was that?
1889.
Wasn't there a lot of other dams that failed around there? Around this? That's weird. That's a trigger. Wow.
This was a 72-foot long dam, 931 feet high.
Yikes.
Between 1881, when the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, remember that, that's going to be a big part in this, was opened in 1889, the dam had frequently sprung leaks. it was patched mostly with mud and straw. Why? That's how I would patch a dam. Additionally, a previous owner had removed and sold for scrap the 3 cast iron discharge drainage pipes,
of course,
that previously allowed a controlled release
how
of water.
would you do that? How would you?
Premeditated murder is where I'm going.
Come on.
The
That's a
dam
lie.
had been some speculation as to the dam's integrity, and concerns had been raised. Before the flood, speculators had bought the abandoned reservoir, made less than well-engineered repairs to the old dam, raised the lake level, built cottages and a clubhouse, and faked a South Fork fishing and hunting club while they prepared to murder the people below. Who went there?
Flooded it.
Members of this exclusive and secretive retreat in the mountains were 61 wealthy Pittsburgh steel and coal
barons, Pittsburgh,
including
steel.
Carnegie, Mellon.
Now we've come full circle, baby. Now it makes sense.
On May 31st, 1889, after an unprecedented rainfall, the dam was set loose, or it gave away.
It was set loose. It was set loose. Yeah. They set it loose. They did. That was a plan. They planned all those dams. I'm telling you, there's more than one of them at that time. They let those.
We don't have time to go into it, but
it's interesting.
Trust me when I tell you that a lot of those 2,000 people all worked for the same company, because Johnstown was what? A company town. What did they do? Well, there's some hidden history for you. Go find out. But they didn't do it anymore, and then somebody else had to get paid to do what they did, and
kind of like it was the takeover. It was what they did to build these places up. They had to build these. They had to trick the people into it. They knew, that there was this, just like the Hoover Dam and everything else that they claim. But we see all these deaths, and
I put on the record right now that your fraternities, when they started, they're the mob. Tammany Hall, they were the mob. The Bowery Boys, they were the mob. The Dead Rabbits, they were the mob.
The Bowery
Jewish mob, the Irish mob, the Italian mob, the Triad. They're all
mobs. It's like they released all the mobs at the same time, but the dirty, filthy Italians were the strongest mob, because they would kill you in your sleep. They would cut your mother's tongue out, pull it through her freaking throat, and watch her choke to death in front of your children. The dirty Italians, and I grew up with filthy Italians, and I'm saying, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that's why the Italians were the filthiest ones, because they could cut your mother's asshole out and go to dinner that night and not have a problem with it. I'm saying, I live with them.
There is no one worse mafia than any other mafia.
But then they all wanted to emulate that horror, which was the devil being released, they used the Italians. They used them. It was because they had to, in order to confiscate all the regions of the world. They couldn't do it on their own. They needed these filthy people to take over. It's like they sent out, I don't know how it worked, but we see the way it worked, because we're living in it right now. We're living in the takeover. And you know what? It's okay, because somehow I'm still here, you're still here, and we're still able to.
And we know what we know. And we have to be like that person that Tommy was talking about today.
Right.
You're still feeling the pain from the punch in the mouth. And that's our life. That's our life. In this life, you have tribulation, but we're going to be of good cheer, because we know that Jesus Christ has overcome this world.
We will be able to report back to God the Father and be incorporated back into the, you know, the oneness of God somehow in the final analysis, and we'll be able to testify to the truth, not to condemn, but to enlighten and to bring, to bring to fact that Jesus never lied about who he was. He is God in the flesh, somehow equal to you and me, but somehow equal to God. I can't explain it. You can't explain it. Stop trying to. Just accept it is all I'm saying. Freaking at this point, we know either, otherwise, who you gonna trust in? Your neighbors, your family, Buddha, karma, and all this shit never works out. And the only thing I've ever trusted in is Christ and Jesus, that he said he was God in the flesh, and that's the only thing. Otherwise, I would abandon him. If he didn't say he was 100% me and 100% you, but 100% God, I would never, because then he knows what you did. He knows what we did. You can't pull no tricks on Jesus, because he was here and he is God in the flesh, and you can't lie to him. But then that if you succumb to him now and you offer him into your life, you'll be so, I'm not an intelligent guy, but God is just, this has been the most amazing time. And I always want to say thank you, Paco, and
Yeah,
thanks.
well, I want to just say we're going to give you the last word with that, Scotty, because I don't think I can add anything to it. So we'll let
It is the most exciting time in history, because we have no history. You have no reliance on family and friends and pedigree. You have no reliance on, now you only can rely on what, if you divorce yourself from your feelings, stand back and look at the world, and then paint yourself into that. God gave us this amazing, you you will never get any better writings than the Bible. I mean, you could try. I've tried. God let me try, and then I've always come back, and the Bible studies are our original voice to a creator that still hides a little bit, still hidden. And we revel in the fact that one day we'll know the creator. There will be hidden parts. Still, we're having them revealed to us today, but wait a minute, one day we will know the creator, and I'm longing for the day that we know the truth, and we won't have to play these human games no more. And that's what I always hold fast to, is that somehow, that God is
Well, Scotty,
true
I
love.
honestly believe you are speaking for a lot of people right now, for the 11 people listening, and hopefully the 100 more that will hear this, by next weekend, because, that's the truth. So I'm going to leave it there, everybody. I've got some things I want to do, hopefully come back tonight. It is a flat earth nation. Mudflood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Can you hang on for a few minutes anyway? I want to talk to you, Scotty. Amen.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah. Aho.